Welcome to Rob and Tony's Cinematic Adventure. I'm Rob Wilson.
And I'm Tony DeQuano.
Now, Tony, tell me, what movie are we discussing today?
We are discussing the Best Picture winner from 1995 with Mel Gibson directing himself in Braveheart.
Freedom! Fantastic movie. I love this movie.
Fantastic movie.
I would
cite it as one of the most historically inaccurate movies ever made.
Very historically inaccurate, but that's okay.
But it's okay.
Because we're following up another very historically inaccurate movie when we did Gladiator right before this one. So that's okay. A movie can be
itself.
A movie can take place in history and not be historically accurate. That's okay. It's a movie. Nowhere in it does it say it's based on a true story.
It's not a documentary. I mean, I get that, it's not supposed to be revisionist, right? So, Tarantino likes to do his kind of revisionist history movies with mostly fictional characters within historical settings, right? No. Movies don't need to necessarily be the most historically accurate, as long as it's not, in my opinion, it's like, to use a Hitler analogy, is to say, oh yeah, Hitler was a really good dude.
Yeah, that's something that probably shouldn't be in a movie. but no,
yay slavery.
Yeah. Yeah. So even when the movie is about a real life historical figure, it doesn't have to be 100% true.
Right.
It's,
uses broad strokes.
Think of it as fan fiction. William Wallace fan fiction.
There you go. With things not necessarily proven and stuff that's definitely anachronistic, like kilts and...
Yeah. And by the way, if the people listening to this thing hear some crunching going on in the background, that's just my dog chewing on a bone. So I'm sure my mic is picking some of that up. But just so you're not worried that there's something crumbling behind me or something like that.
It's interesting when you listen to certain podcasts long enough with how people hosts can be candid. Like, oh yeah, you might hear a toddler in the background.
Yep.
Might hear a dog munching on a bone.
Yep.
Might hear the neighbors in the apartment above us getting freaky.
Just to be clear, this is not the dog that I mentioned in the Star Wars podcast, in the Star Wars episode that we did.
Yes.
Because he, unfortunately, about 9 months ago, passed away. He had contracted cancer, and it was very sad to lose him. So this dog munching away behind me is Maggie, my 6-month-old puppy. So
also a very cool dog.
Yes.
So I guess my first memory of this movie, and it's interesting. I remember when it won Best Picture, right? And I think at that point, I started being kind of aware of just any of those award shows, like the Oscars, the Grammys, the Emmys, right? Because the year before, Forrest Gump won, which I remember seeing in theaters. And
should have been Speed.
Deal.
Speed should have won.
Speed should have won. Probably Pulp Fiction.
Yeah, I guess that was the same year, wasn't it?
Yes. It was actually a really good year.
It really was.
Shawshank Redemption was that year. 4 Weddings and a Funeral.
Yeah, 94 was a good year for movies.
And I know some people have problems with Forrest Gump now. I actually don't think it's that bad of a movie. It's probably not, it's not quite the best picture of 1994, but that was a good movie.
I've never been a huge fan of it, but I don't know. It's also been once I've seen it. So if we end up doing it on the podcast, then I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to watching it again to see how I feel about it now.
And I remember the year before, Schindler's List won.
Ah, yes. And
I remember, I don't recall seeing TV ads for it. I probably wasn't at that point. It's like watching. I think the most, rated movie or like Jurassic Park. Other than that, I'm seeing Aladdin and a bunch of G and PG movies where they're not going to be showing trailers for movies like Schindler's List. Right? But I remember hearing about it, and I had this memory of Schindler's List actually. It was at where my mom would get her haircut. I was there, and this woman was getting her hair done, reading Schindler's List.
Okay.
But I think it was right around the time when my starting to enter my mind about these different award movies, and saw Forrest Gump and won. And again, it was when Forrest Gump came out, I probably wasn't going to watch a movie like Pulp Fiction or Shawshank Redemption. But Forrest Gump was PG-13. I got 10 or 11, I guess 10 when it came out. But got the older brother, whatever. But then I remember the next year I hear like this movie about Braveheart one. Like, again, it was that same thing. I'm like, oh, okay. I hear Mel Gibson. I knew who Mel Gibson is, but even then, like, I probably hadn't seen the movie with Mel Gibson in it, right?
Yep.
Like, I hadn't seen Lethal Weapon yet. So I just kind of filed that away. And then, a few years down the road, it's like, oh, yeah, let's watch this movie where people, this war movie that takes place in the Middle Ages, and people are hacking each other with broadswords. So I did that, and I guess that's probably, high school was probably about the time I first watched it. I'm like, okay, let's watch it. By that time I had seen Lethal Weapon 4. I hadn't seen Lethal Weapon yet. The first time I'd watched Braveheart.
Yeah, I saw it. I saw Braveheart for the first time right around the same time. It was 99, 2000 era.
I don't remember if I saw it before Gladiator or not, to be honest. Since we're talking about Gladiator, similar movies.
I'm not sure which one I saw first either.
And the other one that gets obvious comparisons to is the 1999 Mel Gibson movie, The Patriot.
Yes.
I did see in theaters.
That one I saw in theaters too. But yeah, Braveheart, it was somewhere in that 98, 99, 2000 stretch. Yeah. But yeah, a couple of friends were over and they wanted to watch Braveheart. They're saying how good it was.
Actually, you know what? I remember this now.
And so we watched it.
The first time I watched it was probably about the fourth or fifth DVD that I received, because I received a DVD player.
You saw it on DVD?
Yes.
I saw it on VHS.
I received a DVD. I think I received a DVD player for my birthday, and it included, my parents had gotten me Final Destination and Gladiator. So this would have been like 2000. And then at Christmas, because of Gladiator and The Patriot, because I think I got The Patriot not long after that, I asked for Braveheart for Christmas. I got Braveheart for Christmas, and I watched Braveheart with my parents.
All right.
And I remember this because of a scene early in the movie where William Wallace gets married.
Yes. Yes. That scene's great to watch with your parents. With your parents in particular.
Well, I was like, no wonder you wanted this movie. Like, I had no idea that was it.
There's like 30 seconds of boobs.
Of shadowy boobs.
Of shadowy boobs, yes. I don't even think you see both boobs in the same shot.
You actually see more dick in this movie.
Yes, you do. Oh, by the way, spoiler alert. If you have not seen this movie and you don't want to be spoiled, pause the podcast, go watch the movie, and then come back and finish listening. If you don't mind spoilers,
you see a lot of penis.
If you don't mind spoilers, like all the penis that you see, then go ahead and keep listening. You see a lot of bare Scottish ass too.
Yeah.
Which that scene actually ended up in the Guinness Book of World Records for the most bare asses shown in one shot in a movie.
It had to be a fun scene.
Come on, it's not just an Academy Award winner. It's a Guinness World Record holder.
Just moon us.
Careful. Don't say that too loud. People might start mooning us if they see us out in the wild.
Anyway, so I guess we don't really say, people may or may not know who William Wallace was. I have no idea. But it's based off the life of William Wallace, right?
Yeah.
And particularly, it was based off a poem about him, right?
Was it? Was it based off a poem?
Or at least inspired. I'm trying to remember, but not that important. But William Wallace, the idea is the Scots gaining freedom from the English, which would have been what? William Wallace.
And the funny thing about
1770 to 1305, right? So late 13th, early 14th century. Yeah.
Now, the funny thing about the title, William Wallace was never known as Braveheart.
No.
Braveheart was Robert the Bruce.
Yes. Who is in the
movie.
Character in this movie.
Yes. Played by Angus McFadden.
Yes, and we really should do Equilibrium one day.
Yes, should.
It's a movie that does not get enough appreciation.
He is excellent in that movie.
But I think Braveheart definitely inspired a lot of people to want to learn more about not just William Wallace, but also Robert the Bruce, because, I think, his character is kind of really interesting in it as well. He's, kind of in the background, but he's actually a very important character within the movie because of how important he is historically also. More so than some of the other supporting characters of the movie. So, but yeah, Robert the Bruce, who really would be like the, I guess, quote unquote, the king of Scotland.
Yes.
But, not independent, not without getting into all the historical intricacies of it, but he's the king of Scotland. But the movie kind of dives into all of that. So how does the movie start, Rob?
So movie starts when William Wallace is just a wee lad.
It's a wee lad like that, yeah.
There's a meeting that his father and brother are called to. A meeting by the elders.
And by the King of England.
Yes, and the King of England.
Edward Longshanks.
Yes, Edward the First. Edward Longshanks. But anyway, so William wants to go with them to the meeting. But his dad will not let him. Says he's not old enough. So
the King of Scotland just died too.
Oh yes, the King of Scotland just died.
Historically, that'd be, I think, Alexander III.
Yeah.
Anyway, not important to me, but the King of Scotland just died, which that part is important. And he's trying to get
which King of Scotland it was isn't really.
All the, I guess you could say, the nobility or the wealthy people, the landowners, right, Scotland together, that kind of broker a treaty or peace, whatever it might be.
Yeah, with England. And then, So William wants to go. His dad won't let him. And I wonder, it's never really explicitly stated in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to wonder if William wanting to go and, just the time that his dad took to convince him to stay home might have been what saved his life.
Probably did.
Because they get to the meeting. They get to the meeting place, the barn where they're all going to be meeting. And they walk in there and everybody's dead.
Right. So
England had come in and slaughtered everybody. And they were hanging from the rafters.
Is the King of Scotland that died had no heirs. So obviously who's going to be the King of Scotland now is up for grabs. And when you put yourself within that context, you understand why the king is like, oh, here's my opportunity. So let's get them all together. Let's kill them all. And you even see young kids just hanging from the rafters, which would be quite the sight for a young lad of about probably 9 or 10, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, the rest of the Scots are enraged about this, and they need to go out. They want to go out and fight the king about it.
Yeah. So, but when they're in the barn and see all the people hanging from the rafters, Malcolm Wallace, William's dad, looks over and sees William standing in the doorway.
Yeah,
he had followed them
because he's an adventurous little boy.
Yeah, he's what, like 8 or 9 years old at the time.
8. He's curious. I get it.
So he saw some things that he probably shouldn't have had to see at that age. But yeah, so then Malcolm and John, William's brother, are called to battle, and they end up dying.
And you see within this, Wallace is with a good friend of his and other young kids. He sees the characters that were important for later.
Yes, he and his friend Hamish are playing with rocks. They have rocks stacked up, pretending they're soldiers. They're hiding behind a big rock, and they throw pebbles at them. Yep. And Hamish throws his and misses. So then William throws his rock, and he throws 2 rocks. It's both of their little soldiers, and Hamish gets upset and punches him. Just punches William as hard as he can, knocks him down on the ground.
They do what boys do, right? Do we see young Mirren at this point? I know we see her dad.
Young Mirren we don't see until the funeral.
Her dad brings back the bodies
yes.
of his dad and his brother.
Yes.
He's just doing work around the little house. And he realizes right away that, his brother and dad are dead.
Yep.
They had the funeral, and that's when we see young Mirren. He gives him a little flower. And
not just any flower, a thistle.
A thistle, yes. Which will be important later. That's why we're mentioning young Mirren, young Hamish. They factor importantly in the movie later. So they do the funeral, and then Brian Cox shows up.
Yes, and the thistle, of course, is the national flower of Scotland.
Right. I don't think I need that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So it means more than just she gives him a thistle at the funeral.
Okay. I don't know. Yeah, I didn't understand. I didn't know that.
Yeah, the thistle is the national flower of Scotland.
I just always thought it was just a little girl giving a little flower to a boy who was sad.
Well, I mean, that's part of it, too. But the symbolism beyond that, I'm sure that's what it was when she was giving it to him. Just little girl
for her,
giving a flower to a little boy who was sad. But the symbolism of that particular flower being given to William Wallace, the one who would grow up to lead the armies of Scotland against England.
Yes. And he kept it. So
yes, he did.
Which we'll find out. Which is like, I'll get to this very shortly. So she gives him the thistle, and then Brian Cox, or Argyle.
Yes. His Uncle Argyle.
Shows up. I love Brian Cox.
I do too. He's great in everything he's in. Brian Cox is one of those actors that if he's in the movie, you know it's going to be a good movie.
Yes. I was like, it's the most recent thing I've seen him in. It's been a little while, but he's like in the Rise of Planet of the Apes.
He was in the Bourne movies.
Kind of recently, the Bourne movies. Yeah. He's a little older now at this point, so I don't think he acts as often anymore. There was a good period, I think, kind of like after Sean Connery kind of retired. Mm-hmm. Brian Cox kind of took over a lot of the roles you might think Sean Connery might be in.
Yeah. So a few years ago, I was on, I had jury duty.
Yeah.
And the defense attorney looked exactly like Brian Cox.
That makes total sense. I could see a defense attorney like, you know what? I'm going to look like Brian Cox. Anyway, and it's interesting, he's got, it's a very brief role, to be honest, right? But it makes an impression.
Yeah, but he takes William under his wing. He raises him.
Yeah.
Takes him around the world.
Way, you can tell that he is strong, but noble.
Yeah. And wise.
I would say very wise.
Yeah, I mean, he
asked
William,
about the eulogy and about it being in, and the young one was like, it was Latin, so you didn't understand it, right?
We'll have to remedy that.
So you can tell that he's a very religious guy, but then they got the bagpipes playing, and young Wallace is enthralled by his sword, and
he wants him to teach him how to use the sword.
So Brian Cox tells him he has to learn how to use his brain first.
Exactly. Yes, you got to use your wits before you use the sword.
He goes off on many merry adventures.
Yes,
with his Uncle Argyle.
I want to see that movie.
That movie is Highlander.
You are absolutely right. That movie is Highlander. Oh, yeah.
Which we will do.
Yes, we will.
If you've never seen Highlander, or you've never seen Highlander, we will do Highlander.
Yes. Don't know when we'll do it yet, but we'll do it. It's on the list. Fantastic movie. But yeah, so he goes to live with his Uncle Argyle. And then there's a time jump to where everybody's all grown up. All the kids are all grown up. And is this when we go and are introduced to to Edward Longshank's son?
Yeah,
when he's
so that's
marrying.
kind of like the in-between part. Like he gets married to
the Princess of France, played by Sophie Marceau.
Obviously, all that stuff at that point is very strategic to set everything up. And you can tell right then that, he's just hoping that his son that he knows likes to play for the other team, right? His son's obviously gay.
I mean, he's making eyes with his lover at his wedding.
But anyway, that definitely plays a lot within the movie.
Yes, that plays a huge role part later. So Edward Longshanks hates that his son is gay and is trying to create a link with France by having him marry Princess Isabel.
Yes.
And
at the same time, you can tell he's kind of irritated with Scotland, that they're just not completely submitting to him yet. It's not so much some of the lords, it's kind of the regular common folk. And this is one of the inaccuracies is, he decides that he will breed them out, right?
Yes. Decides that he's going to establish prima nocta, where the local lord of whatever region will lay with the bride on her wedding night.
Yes. Not that guarantees anything, but
no.
Within the movie, it does juxtapose, right? You have this marriage that's arranged between an attractive young lady and a guy that's gay and don't care about each other, and they're just kind of doing what's being told of them. And then, you shift back into Scotland, and you have this marriage between two people that do want to get married.
Yes. The husband of which is played by Tommy Flanagan, who we talked about in Braveheart, or in the Gladiator episode. So he was in Gladiator, and he's also in Braveheart.
But that's about the time when William Wallace shows back up in his little home village. He has a rock throwing contest with Hamish again.
Yes, with Hamish. Only this time, it's more of a shot put kind of thing.
Yes.
They got bigger rocks, and Hamish throws his farther than William, and then William challenges him, tells him that bet you can't do that when you have to.
Yeah.
When it counts. And so William walks out into the field. On his way out, picks up a little rock and just stands there and waits for Hamish to throw his rock at him. And, of course, Hamish misses. And then William throws
David and Goliath type of scene.
William throws his little tiny rock. First, he lines up his shot, checks the wind, throws his rock, hits Hamish right between the eyes.
And he falls over.
And then he punches William again.
Hamish, by the way, is played by Brendan Gleeson.
Yes, another excellent actor.
Who, at that time, I think, would have been mostly unknown to at least American audiences. He has since become quite the prolific. I know he's not like a lead actor, but I wouldn't even really call him a...
No, but he's...
character actor, because he doesn't blend into a lot of roles. But it's funny, you're watching it this time, like, oh yeah, Brendan Gleeson looks young there.
Well, it was 95. Probably 94 when they filmed it.
But at that time, he was like 40 years old.
Yeah. And did you know he's the father of Domhnall Gleeson, who played General Hux in the Star Wars sequels? I
was aware of that. I kind of say this because it wasn't that long before I rewatched this that I saw the Banshees Inisherin.
Yes, he's in that too.
At that point now, he's obviously like a 60-something person, as opposed to being 40. Braveheart. So it's just kind of interesting to track that. Anyway, but it's all during like a wedding,
and the local lord comes in after the ceremony, like immediately after the ceremony.
Yeah.
To take the bride, and Tommy Flanagan starts to oppose of that, and his lovely bride comes and stops him and reassures him that she'll be okay. She doesn't want him to get hurt. And she goes with the local nobleman.
And, at that point, it kind of sets the stage of the tension that's going on, right?
Mm-hmm. And it's at this same wedding, the same ceremony, before that, back when they were having a little rock throwing contest, that William comes in contact with Merrin again.
Yes. Now played by Catherine McCormack, who's also very young then, and is now much older.
Everybody's much older now.
Yeah. What strikes me...
She still looks good now, though.
What strikes me about this movie, though, is the one thing that throws me off about it, is Mel Gibson himself.
Yeah.
Right? Because he looks like he should be like the 40-something-year-old.
Yeah.
Or, mid-30s maybe, even though he's probably supposed to be like 20 years old.
Yep.
But he doesn't look 20.
No.
Anyway.
No, he looks like Mel Gibson.
Which, if I'm going to say one complaint about the movie, is that, especially in these early scenes, he looks a little out of place with it.
A little bit.
But yeah, Catherine McCormick now plays the older her. She still remembers young William Wallace and is immediately infatuated with him.
Yep.
He's never stopped thinking about her.
He has never stopped thinking about her. He fell in love with her that day that she gave him a thistle.
That's right. He's kept it. But of course, wouldn't be young love if there's some parents disagreeing about said relationship, and not even necessarily about some lord taking her on a wedding night. Her dad wants to make sure that Wallace is up to being the man that his dad was, really, when it comes down to him.
Yeah.
Because her dad had a lot of respect for his dad. But, they kind of have to have their little secret rendezvous, and eventually, what was the time?
Eventually they get engaged from a very unusual proposal. William's talking about all the stuff that he wants to get done, and he mentions it'll be much easier once his sons arrive. And Moran's like, "Oh, so you have sons?" He's like, "Well, I was hoping you'd help me with that."
Vagina junction, what's your function? Take it in
sperm and spitting out babies. Oh, well. But yeah, so
I'm not sure a lot of Scottish proposals really went that way.
Well, it'll be better when my sons arrive, or Vagina Junction.
Both.
Oh yeah, probably not.
There might be a few modern day Vagina Junction proposals.
Yeah, maybe. Anyway, so they get married in secret.
In secret.
They,
as we talked about,
get
earlier,
a priest out in the clearing in the woods.
To see their
and then
night in the shadows.
Yep, the shadowy boobs come up.
There's also shadowy Mel Gibson ass.
Yes, the first of many asses in this movie.
Don't worry, there is full-on Mel Gibson penis later.
Yes, there is. Very briefly.
Right now, it's a shadowy Gibson penis. But, at least they're married, and he gets to be with her first.
Yep. But within days, it might even be the next day. I don't know. It doesn't say if it's the next day or if it's.
I've always taken, maybe the next day, maybe 2 or 3 days later.
Yeah. Then
within the week.
They're still
within 3 or 4 days.
Yeah. They're still trying to hide that they're married, but they can't help but show their affection when they pass each other in the marketplace.
Because they're having sex every night in the shadows.
Yes. They're sneaking out of the woods.
That. But, they're
sneaking out of the woods, and they're breaking out the shadowy boobs and the shadowy penis.
He wants sons, come on.
But yeah, so some English soldiers see what's going on with them in the marketplace, sees their reaction to seeing each other, and decides that he's going to basically try to rape Moran.
That dude has got to be one of the creepiest looking dudes in cinematic history.
Yeah.
I don't want to be mean about it, but he kind of
is creepy.
Looks
very
like
creepy.
So, if anyone's ever seen the 90s version of the Addams Family, Christopher Lloyd plays Uncle Fester.
Yes.
If you take a look at that version of Uncle Fester, if he's been exposed to a lot of radiation,
I could totally see that.
That's what he kind of reminds me.
I could totally
this
see
dude is almost surprised, given that it's the late 13th century, they haven't just kind of isolate him in some colony because he looks like a guy you think might be contagious, and you just don't want to catch what this dude has. But he tries to rape her, and Wallace is not going to have anything to do with that, and bloodshed ensues.
Yeah. And William catches wind of what is going on and fights the soldiers off. That's the English knights off. And, throws Murron on the back of a horse. Tells her to ride. And so she's trying to get out of town. And all of a sudden, she gets hit in the face with a log.
Yeah.
Knocked off the horse and then drug away by the English knights.
They, of course, want to draw Wallace out. The best way to do that is to execute her.
Yeah. Which William Wallace does not take lightly. I mean, he goes riding into their camp, pretending like he's surrendering, puts his hands behind his head and everything. And then, something he must have picked up on his world travels with Uncle Argyle, he pulls out nunchucks. He pulls nunchucks out of his hair. Where he got the nunchucks, it had to have been his travels to China with his Uncle Argyle.
He must have, he's probably been keeping them in there.
I don't know. How long has he had nunchucks in his hair?
He was definitely shagging Murron with him in there. I kind of felt bad for that dude. He's just going to try to, kind of arrest Wallace, and all of a sudden he gets a nunchuck to the face.
He gets a nunchuck to the face. He was just standing there talking to him. It wasn't even
like a regular soldier.
Yeah, he wasn't even necessarily one of the ones that took Murron. He might have been, but he was just there, and he got nunchucked in the face. Oh, there's too much nunchuck violence in this world.
If only all the other chuckers were like Michelangelo.
I know, right? I mean, he can seamlessly switch between nunchucks and sausage links.
Right. Then, he's just going to be totally cool. I'm just going to sit here with my sausage pizza at that point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
Yeah.
But now everybody else starts to revolt against all the English. And there's even more bloodshed.
Yep. But yeah, so they revolt, and William goes up to the regional nobleman.
Yeah, once they've gotten everybody else, ties him to the pole
and slits his throat.
Gives him the same punishment.
Yep. He just kills him in the same way that he killed Murron.
Yep. And he does it just so nonchalantly. Like, he doesn't even, he just does it quickly. Doesn't even give him.
And that.
You can see, like, the actor plays it well. Like, you know he's fucked.
Yes. He plays it brilliantly.
And just, it's quick, and it's funny. Like, with Murron, you don't even actually, you hear it and you see her face, and then, you see
his throat get slit open and then blood pour out.
And he's gone.
Like someone just turned on the blood faucet or something.
And now...
so now that...
William Wallace, who wants to live in peace...
he didn't want anything to do with the war with England or with the revolt against England. He just wanted to live in peace, raise his sons. That now he's not going to get with Murron.
And now he's going to kill a lot of people.
Yes. And now he's going to do more than just nunchuck people in the face. Why didn't he bring the nunchucks out later? He could have done some damage with those in the battles.
There are going to be deer antlers to the jugular.
Yes. Improvised weapons left and right.
But
4.5-foot claymore.
Within this, though, we do get introduced to Hamish's father.
Who is one of the most badass characters in movie history.
How many lives that dude have? I fully expected his zombie to show up.
I know.
Start killing people.
I know.
Once he finally dies.
And I mean, when he gets his hand cut off, they cut his hand off in the middle of a battle with an axe, and he just gets up and keeps on fighting. And he gets shot with an arrow right in the chest, right by his heart.
And
he just breaks off the arrow and keeps on fighting. And then later on at the camp, they get the arrow out and go to cauterize his wound, and nobody wants to hold him because they know what's going to happen. They keep passing off to, you hold him. And finally, the guy that holds him down, or they're holding him to cauterize it. You cauterize it. You know, you do it. The guy who finally takes the red hot iron to the wound, he gets knocked out.
And like, the dude's like 60 something.
Yeah.
it's like anyway, we'll progress, but you know, so now he wants to fight, and he wants to send that message to Longshanks.
But does he still have the nunchucks in his hair later? Does he just keep those as a backup weapon or something?
They gotta be there. He doesn't wash them. He doesn't wash the hair at all.
No, I mean, he lives out in the grimy forest of the hills of Scotland. There's not really a shower anywhere.
No.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I just like to think that he keeps those in his hair for you know, a last resort kind of thing.
What's weird is, you know, he just so many times he probably could have used them. He doesn't use them.
That's because he's got other weapons that he's using at the time.
Yeah.
That time, I mean, he had to appear unarmed, so I guess it would make sense that he would use them when he did, because he had to look like he was surrendering, so he wasn't able to look like he had weapons.
Yeah.
And the rest of the movie, he's always got a weapon on him.
Time when you just stored nunchucks in your hair.
Yes.
You can just put your hands above your head and then pull them out.
Yeah.
Like, he can, you know, it makes, you know, back then, you don't have barbers and you don't wash your hair. But, like, nowadays, you know,
I mean,
unless you're, you know, sporting dreadlocks.
He could have put his hands behind his back and pulled the nunchucks out of his kilt. But he didn't. He had them in his hair. A young soldier probably don't want to be there, but he gets nunchucks. Probably just waiting for the end of his shift so he could go home and have dinner with his wife.
Anyway. So,
So
now Wallace definitely wants to send the message that Scotland needs to be free and needs to be rid of Longshanks. And of course, you know, Wallace thinks that, you know, he's trying to make his son this big, strong guy. He wants him to show strength. He wants, you know, he's also trying to secure his alliance with France. That's why his son got married to Princess, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now Wallace wants to continue to send messages. So they continue to attack the English in Scotland.
Yep.
You know, and you get garrisons being burned and men being impaled. And, you know, it's at that point, like you said, you know, he's just kind of a commoner within Scotland. You know, there's all you just don't have that supposed king of Scotland. They also have all the lords, and they have property, and they have their own interests they have to kind of after.
Yeah, and then, you know, in all this, we get Robert the Bruce, who keeps cutting to him. He is the next in line for the throne of Scotland. Yes,
his dad is Robert the Elder. And his dad is trying to secure the crown for his son.
Yes.
His dad is a leper.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny. I think I saw this after I had saw Ned Devine. Ian Bannon play his father. And we talked about Angus McFadden playing Robert the Bruce. But yeah, it's kind of funny. Whenever I start watching this, you know, multiple times, like, oh yeah, that's a guy from Breaking Ned Devine. Yeah. Which is a funny little Irish movie. Anyway.
Yeah, I forgot he was in that. It's been a long time. I haven't seen that movie since it was in theaters.
No, we had it on VHS, and my parents loved that movie.
Yeah, my dad loved it.
It is a funny Irish movie.
It is.
You know, you kind of have to know, like, mean, it's Irish. It's not British. And there's British humor and there's Irish humor and there's Scottish humor. They're all a little different from each other. It's not quite what you would expect from, say like a Monty Python, Fawlty Towers type of sketch. Yeah. Anyway.
Speaking of Irish, they bring in an Irishman into the into Wallace's army, and he is, some would call him crazy. he's definitely seems to have a screw or two loose, but he claims that he can speak directly with God.
Yes. Ireland is also his island.
Yes, Ireland is his island. My island. Yes.
But yeah, and this is as the legend of Wallace kind of grows, capturing, again, trying to take apart, protect different villages and from the different English lords. And, finally there's people that want to join him. Some are Scottish and now some are Irish. Most people kind of know the English and the Irish have never gotten along.
And then we get to the first big battle in the movie.
Well, when he saves him from the other guy, that's before
he's hunting.
The battle.
Yes,
hunting. Yes, he's trying to hunt
William's
deer.
hunting. He's hunting a deer, and it just keeps cutting to the Irish guy coming at him, pulling out a short sword, looking like he's trying to assassinate William Wallace. And then he goes to throw the sword, and then it shows that that Wallace's hunting partner is actually the one who's trying to kill Wallace.
Yes.
He turns his bow on William Wallace right as William sees the Irishman, and he raises his bow to shoot him, to take him out. But then the short sword goes flying past William Wallace's head and stabs the other guy in the chest. And he drops dead.
And I never liked him.
Yeah. And then that's when William Wallace learned that he's got someone who's got his back. Someone besides Hamish.
Yeah. And that leads into the first major battle. Obviously, we've already seen a lot of bloodshed.
Stephen is his name, by the way.
Stephen, thank you.
Stephen is his name.
Stephen. And he is played by David O'Hara.
Yes. Who also was in Wanted.
Wasn't Wanted.
He's
also in The Departed.
He was.
Which has a lot of Irish people in it, too.
Yes. And he was in Gotham.
He was in Gotham. That's right. He was in the TV series The Tudors also. But he's actually Scottish.
Yes. Playing an
Irish actor.
Yeah.
That's okay, though.
It's okay. I mean, hey, in Rob Roy, Liam Neeson played a Scotsman. Hey. He's
Ben
Irish.
Kingsley played an Indian dude named Gandhi.
Yes, he did.
If that's not the British just be more imperialist.
Oh yeah. I was gonna mention that Johnny Depp played a Native American, but Ben Kingsley playing Gandhi.
Liam Neeson also played a Jedi. So,
yes, he did. Yes, he did.
He's got a lot of range.
Yes. Yes. He's an Irishman who can play a Scottish guy or a Jedi, or an American who has trouble hiding his Irish accent, going to rescue his daughter who gets kidnapped in France.
Maggie Grace. But he will use that set of skills.
Yes, he will. He always uses that set of skills. He's also Ducard in Batman Begins.
Yes.
AKA Ra's al Ghul, or how it's actually pronounced Ra's al Ghul. But
it all leads into our first big battles, like two massive battles that we've seen in this movie. There's a lot of action. A lot of little skirmishes, and bloodshed, but
so first we have
huge battles.
The Battle of Stirling Bridge, which is not at a bridge in the movie.
No.
In real life, it was a battle over a bridge But there's no bridge in the movie.
What I've read is production-wise, where the bridge would have been, and they would have shot it, would have been difficult for them to really film how they wanted to film it.
Is that because there was a car driving by in the background? Because there was.
Yes.
Yep. Before the battle, there's a car driving by in the background. Pretty sure those weren't invented yet.
Yeah. Anyway, the rest of the kind of Scottish noblemen, they think, all right, let's find a way to broker some type of peace with the English. And the English want to offer all these things, making it sound like it'd be great.
Before that, though, you can't skip over the speech. So
does the speech come after, like, he kind of intimidates?
No. No, because the speech comes because all of the Scottish soldiers that are following those two noblemen, they decide they're going to go home.
That's right.
Because they don't want to put up with this. They don't have anything.
Yeah, they don't
want to risk their lives
for
this.
They get afraid. That's right. You're right.
And so they turn to go, and then William Wallace and his little band of ragtag Scottish badasses, his Scottish SEAL team, come up, and they're all dressed in their blue paint, looking all pretty. Their blue war paint. And he comes up, and people don't believe that he's William Wallace at first.
Yeah, there's all these legends about William Wallace.
And if William Wallace were here, then he would take out the English by shooting fire from his eyes and lightning bolts from his arse.
But I am William Wallace.
That is a brilliant speech. Classic speech. Which, of course, ends with, they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom!
By the way, Mel Gibson's Australian.
Yes, he is. Mel Gibson is Australian, playing Scottish.
Which, granted, since he's white, he can trace himself back to that island.
Yes.
Anyway.
Yeah. And, I mean, it still, whether he's Scottish or Australian, it still makes sense that he would be battling the British.
And then, so he makes a speech, and then he just decides to mock.
Yes, then the other guys go up there to try to, broker a deal, and he goes, William Wallace goes up there, tells his guys that he's going to go pick a fight. He goes and starts mocking them, and I love Hamish's line right then. Imagine that there's no way they're not going to be going into battle right then, and he's like, well, we didn't get dressed up for nothing.
So we get right back. He talks to the lords and the commanders there, and he gives them instructions about how to kind of proceed with the battle. And it's a good idea is make them think there's going to be some retreat, and you flank them.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good idea within the movie because, we want to portray the English as being arrogant and haughty, and they're going to continue on just to crush, and then
and
flank them and crush them.
In order to intimidate them and to mock them, that is when the Guinness World Record
moon them
comes up. All of William Wallace and his people turn around, flip up their kilts, and moon the English army.
And then they proceed to let their archers.
Yes.
An onslaught of arrows. And,
yep. A couple of them
get some arrows in the ass.
Yes. A couple of them get.
For some reason, people turn around and get them in the face. And,
why did they turn around?
And after that, when most of them realize the most they have is an arrow in their butt.
Yep.
They
turn around and they flash their Scottish penises at them.
It's a true sausage party.
Yes. You get all these, so you get just as many dicks on the screen as you do asses. I've never
some more potato though.
So yeah, I've heard about the world record for the most asses on screen. But did they get another one? Did they get 2 records that day? Or is there another movie with more dicks on screen.
Log jamming. I don't know how log jamming and Jackie Treehorn got more dicks on screen.
Oh, yeah.
Somehow they did.
Well, I mean, Too Excited Trampoline Guy was probably part of it.
That dude is one of those unsung actors in history.
Yes, I've never seen him in anything else. Never seen that guy in anything but Big Lebowski.
Perfect reaction.
Yes.
Anyway.
But yeah, we've already you could hear all about Too Excited Trampoline Guy if you listen to the Big Lebowski episode we did. But
so yeah, Anyway, there's a lot of meat and potatoes.
Yes. A lot of twig and berries.
Anyway, the battle proceeds, and again, we've talked about Hamish's father and his exploits.
Yeah. In fact, this is when he gets shot, isn't it?
Yeah.
Shot with the arrow in this battle, and then the next battle is when he gets his hand cut off.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is the battle where he gets shot with an arrow. Doesn't even phase him.
Nope.
Is shot in the chest with an arrow, just breaks it off and keeps fighting.
Obviously, at this point, not even halfway through the movie, or approaching halfway through the movie, and so the Scottish win.
Yeah,
I expect it to win, and they win.
They win.
And so now, Wallace gets his credit. He gets knighted.
Mm-hmm.
And there's still all this dispute about what the Scots should be doing. And obviously, he still wants to keep fighting for their freedom, and he gets angry because all their lords are just bickering among themselves about
land,
how to proceed, and most of them just kind of want to still give deference to Longshanks. Meanwhile, with Longshanks, he's getting fed up that his son is listening to this other dude.
Yep.
As his military advisor.
Yes, he's upset that his son has taken his lover as his military advisor. And
the Scots keep winning. And so one of my favorite scenes of the movie, or really actually in any movie, he decides to ask, and what should I do about Wallace? And he thinks that the king really wants to know his answer. But no,
he doesn't.
No. Defenestration is on the table.
Yeah.
And he just throws him out the tower window.
Yep.
What I love about this scene is because it's so casual.
Yeah.
There's an old dude
just tossing a young, muscular, in shape.
No.
Dude.
You know who the pitcher is.
Yeah. Yeah. This old guy just chucks this strapping young man out the window. He goes flying out there, arms and legs flailing, and falls to his death.
And that's that.
Yeah.
It proceeds on.
Yeah.
Because Longshanks knows what he wants to do. And eventually gets the idea, let's use my daughter-in-law somehow to kind of catch him off guard. But we can get to that. So, that situation in England. Now we have Scotland, and they're bickering among themselves. And that's kind of when we get really introduced into kind of the drama with Robert the Bruce and his dad. And you can tell his dad doesn't want that drama right away. You know what? No. Give the English what they want.
Yeah. I mean, Robert the Bruce is conflicted.
No,
because
it's played very well.
Here he is the heir to the Scottish throne.
Yep.
Yet there's this guy that came out of nowhere that has gained all this favor with the people of Scotland.
Right. Well, that's the thing about it too. You have to put yourself within that mindset. It's again, we go back how there was no actual heir of the Scottish throne, and so it's all kind of someone that had a lot of favor with the people could be the person that could easily take the throne.
Yeah. I mean, Robert the Bruce, he's the closest thing to an heir at that time, but it can all be taken away from him if William Wallace decides that he wants to be king.
Because he has the favor of the common people.
Yes, and there are a lot more common people than there are nobles.
Right, and there's more history and kind of get into it, in terms of even then you start seeing this idea of pushing back against the monarchy. Anyway, that's still in the early stages of a lot of things. I don't want to get too much in history. Anyway, from a cinematic point of view and story point of view of it, yeah, I mean, you get it. And you can tell from the way he portrays Robert the Bruce that he believes in what Wallace is fighting for.
Yeah.
But it's conflicting because he has also this sense of duty to his dad. His dad obviously wants certain things. He's also thinking about his own ass.
Yep.
Right?
He doesn't want to take an arrow to it.
No. But even for Wallace himself, he just wanted to live peacefully. He knew how he could live peacefully himself. Right? He was a smart guy. He just kind of lived. I mean, back then, he could off the grid, right?
Yep.
He knew how to sustain things. He was, his uncle was super intelligent and taught him a lot of things, and he could just kind of do what he needed to do to hunt in his little life quietly in Scotland.
Yep.
But then, obviously that couldn't happen.
Then the love of his life goes murdered.
And now he has his things he fights for. Right? That gets played up, especially with the princess and her little lady friend from France. That kind of, they get that tingling sensation about this dude that's willing to kill people for the love of his life. Right?
Yeah, so...
as opposed to being in an arranged marriage.
Yeah, so Longshanks sends Isabel to meet with William because he thinks that if William Wallace sees her there instead of him, or instead of an English soldier, then he'll be more favorable to be able to have an open discussion.
He's an intelligent dude. It's a good thought to have, but he definitely underestimates the intelligence of Wallace. And I think he obviously thinks, and we get we'll see this quite soon after this as well. People can be bought, but William Wallace cannot be bought.
No, he cannot.
He offers all this land and this prestige, and Wallace won't have any of that.
No. Wallace wants Scotland to be free, and he's willing to do whatever it takes to make sure that Scotland is free.
His name, by the way, is Isabella.
Isabella. Yes, you're right. Isabella,
yes.
My bad.
But, she's enamored with him. She likes the meeting, but obviously doesn't go the way that Longshanks wants it to go, right? But she warns him that there's going to be an invasion. Because obviously, even before this, she's favoring Wallace over Braveheart and understands that he's kind of trying to set a trap. And she warns him that the English want to invade Scotland even further and be a little bit more brutal. And so Wallace tries to get the rest of the nobles in Scotland to take action against it. But they decide they're going to fight Longshanks as his own, again, people could be bought. One of them is Robert the Elder, Robert Bruce's father, and then Mornay and Lachlan, who they fought at that first, battle at Stirling Bridge, and were seemingly on the side of Wallace,
Yes, but then Falkirk comes around.
But then we have our second major battle, Falkirk.
Battle of Falkirk, where they betray him.
Yep, and Longshanks is there, and you already pretty quickly that kind of a trap. There's a mysterious knight.
Yes, there's a mysterious knight that's there next to Longshanks, and we don't know who it is. But so they're getting ready to go to war, and McClana takes his soldiers away. He has them go home.
And we see the prep that Wallace is thinking about how we're going to do this, and how different ways to kind of utilize it. They still have smaller numbers, but do their best to win the battle.
But one of the things that Longshanks did to help boost the numbers of the English army was they conscripted a bunch of Irish soldiers.
That's right, yes.
To come over and fight on their side. Remember, Ireland is Stephen's Island.
And that's always one of the tough things about this whole battle, because and Longshanks doesn't care about the Irish if he can just get them over there and he can use them as fodder.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's his whole plan to just. And
But
to
I just love when
Longshanks, the
they walk
Irish
up
are
to each
expendable.
other and they shake hands.
Yeah. They're running up, and then they all just start slowing down and walk up together, starts hugging, shaking hands, welcoming each other. Because it's Steven's Island.
It's his island. Island.
My island. Ireland is
Anyway.
my island.
We forgot one of my favorite lines of his back in Sterling
Yes.
Bridge. When
Yes.
he's like,
When
I
an
talked to the good
arrow,
Lord.
yes, right after an arrow busts through William's shield and almost stabs him in the face. But go ahead.
that's the good Lord. And he's pretty sure he'd get me out of this. But he's pretty sure you're fucked. Bah!
Ah!
He steals the show. Like, you gotta
Yes.
have the comedic effect.
Pretty sure
He does.
you're fucked. Ah! That laugh.
Well, anyway, after that, as the battle kind of ensues, it's pretty, all of a sudden, we see the Scottish nobles withdraw. Wallace is flagging them down to signal them, the cavalry to come down and flank them, but they withdraw.
Yep, they withdraw. And then the Scottish basically get slaughtered.
Yeah.
William goes up against that mysterious knight who has a lance. And Wallace loses the joust. And then we discover that after, Wallace is knocked off his horse, that mysterious knight
is Robert the Bruce.
It's Robert the Bruce, who comes down to try to help William because he has a change of heart, because he really doesn't want to fight with Wallace. He really doesn't want to compete with him. He respects him.
I wonder why.
Yeah. But yeah, he respects him, but he was only betraying him because that's what his father had told him to do. And so Hamish and Stephen come riding up on their horses, and
he gets Wallace up on there.
Gets Wallace up on the horse, tells him to run off with him, get him out of there. And so he goes out of there.
He gets out of there and survives. Unfortunately, this is where Hamish's father is not able to survive his wounds.
No. For the first time in his life, he's finally not able to withstand the...
But he's at peace with it.
Yes.
He's just such a badass.
Yes. Yes. At this
he
point...
realizes that he died nobly.
Yes.
And he's okay with that.
Yeah.
And that he lived a good life. So...
Yeah.
And we quickly see how much Robert the Bruce regrets what's happened. He sees all the death.
I mean, didn't it take an axe to his stomach or something like that to take him down?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
He was a tough son of a bitch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, Robert the Bruce, he quickly regrets it. He gets angry with his dad about the entire thing. His dad's trying to tell him that it's for his own good, but he vows he doesn't want to be on the wrong side. He wants to do the right thing. And
meanwhile, as the movie goes on, Robert the Bruce's dad has more and more bandages because his leprosy is going out of control.
Now we're at that point, right? We've kind of reached this crest where we think, all is good. Now, obviously, we see the struggle. What's going on, right? He's been betrayed. You don't know where things are going. And, of course, now Wallace is angry.
Yes.
Wants revenge about this betrayal.
Yes.
So now he's launching guerrilla warfare.
Yes.
Against Scottish nobles that betrayed him.
Yes, against the Scottish nobles that betrayed him. So McClanaugh is asleep in his bed and has a dream about William Wallace. And then he wakes up and William Wallace comes busting through his bedroom door on a horse.
It's a hell of a thing to wake up to.
Yes, because busted in his door, riding a horse, walks the horse up to his bed, drops a ball and chain that he's been carrying. He couldn't have had it in his hair because the nunchucks were there.
Because the nunchucks are in there.
Maybe he had it in his kilt. Maybe that's one of his testicles. I don't know. But he swings this thing, just smashes in McClanagh's head. And then all of McClintock's people hear what's going on, and they bust into the room, and Wallace jumps his horse out the window, off a cliff, into the water. And there are so many times in this movie you can just tell it's a fake horse.
There's a lot of horses that die.
Yes, there's a lot of horses that die, but every horse that dies, right before it dies, you can tell it's a dummy horse that they're using. So no real horses were harmed in the making of this movie.
Gotta appease PETA.
It's not like The Godfather where they used a real horse head that they got from a butcher. But
excuse me, do you have a severed horse head we could use?
Sure, I got 10 of them.
You don't mind if we throw this horse out a window into a river? Why not?
Hey.
Anyway, so now obviously the rest of the Scottish are kind of afraid of Wallace capturing them and killing them for betraying him and the Scots to Longshanks. And at this point too, it's interesting. Like, that's kind of the thing about the movie is, like, it's a 3-hour movie. There's actually like a lot of things that kind of like get glossed over a little bit because there's a lot to fit in with. Again, talk about how, like, okay, it's historically inaccurate in a lot of ways, but it's also tracking historical events. Wallace is real, and these battles were real, and Robert the Bruce is a real dude, and Longshanks was real. But kind of as this is going on, Longshanks' health, he's an old dude, and his son in the movie, Edward, I think was, like, historically, like, wasn't his firstborn. It was like his 4th child or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. You can feel free to correct me in the comments about if you know exactly the birth time. But he's in declining health, right? And they don't really show a lot of that progression in the movie, as opposed to Robert the Elder, who you continue to see his leprosy getting worse and worse. But, we talked about it. You talked about it earlier that, it's this whole thing about making sure you have an heir to replace you on the throne. It's not explicitly stated at the beginning, but like, he knows he's a little bit older and he needs someone to replace him. He's worried about his legacy. Anyway, so that's kind of the background about his declining health as we kind of get towards the climax of the movie.
And meanwhile, Isabella goes back and visits Wallace again.
Yes.
In secret this time, without being sent. And they do the dance with no pants in her tent.
They do the deed.
Which is not historically accurate.
No.
That did not really happen. But for the sake of the movie, it's actually very important that it happened.
Yes. Because he's got some super sperm.
Yeah.
She's got the super egg.
Because, William is finally going to have the son that he always wanted. Whether he gets to meet him or not. But yeah, so
it still complicates matters because, like, again, it's heavily implied that he ain't doing Longshanks himself.
Yeah.
But so, like, that son has no real, the child of William and Isabella means nothing for the most part, aside of whatever alliance France has. But anyway, she's still trying to, she has no affinity towards the English throne and do whatever she can to give him the finger.
And she respects Wallace.
But, Longshanks still has his designs and still winds up meeting with Wallace. And that's, it's kind of where the trap gets set to arrest Wallace.
It was, so Robert the Bruce is supposed to be there at the meeting with Wallace, but he was not told of the king's intentions.
Right.
So as far as Robert the Bruce knows, it's an actual legit meeting that he wants to be there with William.
Naive about considering what's happening earlier, but
yes,
whatever.
But Wallace shows up to the meeting. All of a sudden, soldiers come in. Robert the Bruce starts freaking out, trying to tell Wallace that he knew nothing about this, that it's not his fault, that he didn't have any part of it, and William is taken. So then they got to call Liam Neeson to get him back. with this particular set of skills. I'd see that movie.
I haven't seen that. I've only seen the movie once, by the way.
Oh, really? You've only seen Taken once?
I've only seen Taken once.
Wow, we got to do that one. We got to do that one on here, so you got to watch it again. No, I'd see the movie where Liam Neeson comes and rescues William Wallace. So anyway, he's taken and he's put in jail until his execution. And so
the Bruce is even more incensed, banishes his father, and Isabella, who now knows she's pregnant, just kind of rubs it in.
Longshanks, who can't speak.
He's now actually dying.
Yeah, he is on his deathbed. He can't speak. And yeah, she tells him, I got a baby growing in my belly, but it's not your son's.
Not your son's. That's Wallace's, bitch.
But yeah, so she goes and visits William in the jail cell, gives him a drug that's supposed to numb the pain of everything that's going to be going on in the execution, and makes him promise to drink it. And so he agrees to drink it. So she puts it in his mouth. She leaves, and then he spits it out. Because though his pain would be numbed, so would his wits. And he needs his wits to get through the day. And so then we have the next day, Wallace is being paraded through town, where there's some reenactors or enactors acting out what's going to happen.
And obviously all the common people there in London, it's like, yeah, he's this awful criminal that's trying to destroy everything. And so they're perfectly fine to mock everything about what's happening.
And so then we see in the crowd, we got Hamish and Stephen, who are all cloaked up.
Yep.
And
we haven't seen, they've been more in the background over the last third of the movie. Just how it kind of plays out. And
yeah, they're out among the crowd. And
they have great respect for Wallace.
Yeah, so Wallace is he's stretched.
Yeah, and they condemn him first for high treason.
Yes, they condemn him for high treason, and then they give him one chance to before the actual torture happens, they give him one chance to kiss the ring.
Which he refuses.
Yep, he refuses, so then they
put
him on the rack, they stretch him.
Draw him, and then try to disembowel him.
Yeah. So after each step of the torture, they give him that chance, kiss the ring, and so it can all be over. We'll just chop your head off, and it'll be a nice quick death.
It'll be nice, quick, less pain.
But no.
He doesn't want that route.
He refuses, so then they disembowel him, and finally he comes up to him one more time. Just say the word and it'll all be over. Yep. And rather than going along with England,
it's kind of like saying uncle.
Declaring, yeah.
I wanted to say uncle.
Yeah. Basically, they wanted to say uncle.
In a
they want him to
kind of parlance.
They want him to commit himself to England, but he opens his mouth to say one word. Freedom!
And you can even see at this point, like, people are kind of like impressed by his commitment.
Yeah. And then the axe comes down, chops his head off.
They chop his head off.
And then it's, a voiceover from Robert the Bruce.
Well, we see him. Yeah, he sees his wife.
He sees just before he's killed, he sees his wife walking through the crowd.
Which is kind of weird considering he recently did nasty with him.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of messed up.
Like, anyway.
But yeah, so he sees Murren, and he knows
he still
that he
has
will soon
her little,
be with her.
I guess, handkerchief or...
Yes. So what we didn't explain earlier was at their wedding, she gave him a handkerchief with a thistle.
Yes, that's right.
Embroidered in it.
Getting back to the thistle.
And so he was, while he was being paraded through town, one of his guys came up and gave it to him. Because after Falkirk, it had fallen on the ground, and Robert the Bruce picked it up. And so it got back to William Wallace just before he was executed. So he had it in his hand.
To Robert the Bruce again.
Yes, he had it in his hand, and as the axe came down, he dropped it. His hand went limp, and that's how you knew that he died, because he dropped the handkerchief.
Which you tend to die when your head is separated from the rest of your body.
Usually that, yeah. I don't know too many people that have had their heads separated from their bodies and are still alive. It happens with chickens on occasion.
Yeah.
But
snakes. with snakes, it's a few seconds where they might slither around, and that says, but like you said, chickens, yeah, chickens. People, might blink your eyes just because your brain is still connected to your eyes.
Yeah.
But once that blood supply gets cut off.
Yeah. There's something like 7 or 8 seconds or so after decapitation that, you can still see. I would imagine it's weird. That would be weird.
If I ever see Marie Antoinette in the next life, ask her about it. Anyway.
But, so then we get a voiceover from Robert the Bruce explaining what happened after the execution. William Wallace's limbs, his arms and legs were torn off and sent to the four corners of England.
Yeah. His
head was put on a stake and put on London Bridge.
Yeah, I mean, that's usually what they would do, but just freezing people.
Yeah.
Put them on.
So, in order to show Scotland that they need to stop trying to fight them, or else the same thing's going to happen to them. But it had the opposite effect on Scotland, and Robert the Bruce led them to victory, and they won their freedom from England.
At Bannockburn.
Right?
And again, they were going to, if you get into the history of it, like the idea is that Scottish are going to accept English rule, but they fight them instead.
Yes.
You don't get to see the battle.
Yeah.
Beginning of it, right? But what I like about it is, again, you got Robert the Bruce, and you see him, he has his little handkerchief, and he's thinking about it, so, he has it.
Yep.
And he implores him in the fight, and they get, Hamish, he has Wallace's sword.
Yep. The classic,
and
before the battle, he throws the sword, and it goes flying through the air and sticks in the ground.
What's cool about that, too, we didn't really get into it earlier, after Stirling Bridge, it's really kind of that classic scene where you have Gibson in the war paint.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, yeah!
Yeah, he's
screaming about their
4.5 foot
holding
claymore.
his sword up in the air with his men, right? And then, you had a final scene there where they throw it in the ground and it just kind of quivers in the ground after they've won their freedom.
Yeah, with a cloth tied to it.
Yeah.
Little strip of cloth that's blowing in the wind.
It's a good kind of connection back to it's. It's a good way to end it. You don't need the battle. They've won. No. And you see still how committed they are to what Wallace did. Yeah, it's kind of funny. Like it's just kind of it's one of those images of the movie. Have the sword there quivering in the ground, right? It's an appropriate way to end the movie.
Yeah, it really is.
And you have again Hamish and the Bruce and all the other Scottish that alongside still believe in that cause. They get the freedom.
Yeah, so there's Braveheart. Fantastic movie. Love that movie.
Love it. Yeah.
Would love to watch it more often than I watch it, but it's just so long.
It's 3 hours long.
3 hours long. It's hard to set aside 3 hours to watch a movie when you have a busy life.
Brisk 3 hours.
It is. It is. It doesn't feel like 3 hours. There are some movies that are 3 hours that feel like 3 hours. There are some movies that are an hour and a half that feel like 3 hours.
But it moves along. And, again, a lot of it's because there's a lot of fighting and bloodshed in the movie.
Yeah.
But, and it's I'm not opposed to 3 hour movies because The Godfather's 3 hours, Seven Samurai is 3 hours, and
Seven Samurai so
the Lord of the Rings movies are 3 hours, and they're fine.
Yeah,
and
they're fine. It's like you said, it's a fast paced 3 hours, and it doesn't feel like 3 hours. But it's still 3 hours, so you kind of have to set aside a block of time to watch it. But it is well worth the watch.
Yep.
Absolutely love this movie.
I always think you want to, especially if you're trying to watch, not just because it's won Best Picture, it's just worth it in a general sense because it's a good movie.
Yeah. I mean, we
didn't win Best Picture.
We talk a lot about the battles and stuff like that, but it's more than just fighting. It's just a great story.
Mm-hmm. It's told well, and I think I know while people have some opinions about Mel Gibson. I don't know, was this the first movie he directed? And it's funny, like I said earlier, at first it's kind of jarring to think of him within that movie as being that young, but then by the time you really get into the meat of the movie, you don't really think about it because he's just being a kind of like a soldier, a warrior.
Yeah.
Fighting for something. I was going to say, I don't think it was his first he directed. The Man Without a Face.
That's right. He did direct that one.
Was the first one he directed.
Yeah.
And he directed the movie again until The Passion of the Christ. He's only directed, I was looking at this, it's kind of funny to think about. He's only directed 5 movies. Man Without a Face, Braveheart, The Passion, Apocalypto, which I absolutely love also, and Hacksaw Ridge. So
I forgot that he had directed Hacksaw Ridge.
it's kind of fun because, like, 4 of those movies are bloody as hell.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you have The Man Without a Face.
Yep.
Which is like a straight drama. But, you know, I get Gibson is kind of a crazy person himself, but
yeah. Which Man Without a Face he directs and stars in, just like Braveheart.
Just like Braveheart. He did not star in those other movies.
No, he didn't.
But it's worth a watch because, again, it's it's the best picture, but it's just really well done as a story. And yeah, if you haven't seen it, you should watch it. I hope if you sat through this, hopefully you're inspired. If you haven't watched it yet, you're inspired enough to watch it. There's a lot to take in that we haven't talked about. It's one of those movies. It's 3 hours, but like some of it moves briskly because a lot of it's just people fighting.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's not your thing. I don't know.
But I mean, there's also a love story in there, and there's politics, and there's something for everybody.
Political intrigue, and
there's something for everybody in this movie.
People don't like to see horses tortured,
If you're a fan of Wild Hearts Can't Be Broken, then you will love the scene when he jumps his horse out the window and into the water.
Yeah. But yeah, so it's Braveheart, it's just saw Gladiator, and again, I think they kind of go somewhat together because they were released 5 years apart, and
they're always
person fighting about freedom after particular people to him close are murdered.
Yeah. And they're grouped together too. I mean, those movies, for some reason, they're like double feature DVDs. We'll have Gladiator and Braveheart.
I mean, the other one that gets grouped with because it's Mel Gibson and it's a war movie is The Patriot.
Yeah.
So he goes, Patriot is just Braveheart and the American Revolution.
But The Patriot is not going to be the next movie that we do. So we are going to take a break from the. Well, I don't know. Did they? I guess they did win. They did win Oscars, didn't they? Maybe not Best Picture, but they did win Oscars. But their next few episodes are going to be one of my absolute favorite movie series of all time, right up there with Star Wars for me. We're going to do the Indiana Jones movies.
Yeah. The first one.
We're going to go through all 5 of them, including Dial of Destiny, which at the time of recording this episode, just to show you how far behind we are from releasing these things, it just came out, 3 weeks ago? 2-3 weeks ago?
Yeah, roughly. Maybe a month ago.
It was June 30th that it came out, and yeah, about 3 weeks ago. A little over 3 weeks. But anyway, so we're going to be going through, the next 5 episodes are going to be the Indiana Jones series. So we'll go through each of the movies, and hopefully by the time we get to Dial of Destiny, you will have seen that movie, and you'll be able to enjoy our discussion about it. And we look forward to hearing what your thoughts are.
And Raiders of the Lost Ark, by the way, as a little kind of seg towards that, or not seg, but we're talking because it is an Oscar winner. Did win 4 Oscars.
Yeah,
but all the technical stuff like visual effects and sound, but
but still Oscar winner. Still goes with our recent.
And actually, it was not. I always remember this. It was actually nominated for Best Picture that year too.
Well, why wouldn't it be?
Why wouldn't?
It's a phenomenal movie.
It's a phenomenal movie.
But yeah, so anything else?
I am very much looking forward to discussing this one because I love it. I recently rewatched it in the last month with my oldest, and we watched the first 3. He's loved all of them. Wants to watch the others. So it's a favorite series of mine. He said it's Star Wars and Lord of the Rings, and probably another series we might do down the road. We've already done actually. Back to the Future is up there with my favorite. So.
But yeah, I mean, we'll get into this more when we actually talk about them, but the Indiana Jones series has had a big hand in molding me from my childhood, just like Star Wars did, and forming my, my fandoms, my interests and my...
Raiders is such an important movie. It just, in a lot of ways, we'll discuss it in the next one, but yeah, it's molded me in terms of a lot of things too, and I'll discuss part of that. So Raiders was not the first of them that I actually saw.
Same here.
But We can go deeper in that, but I just think it's a series that is vitally important to movies and cinema within the last 40 years. And we'll dive into that next time.
Yep. So join us next time for Raiders of the Lost Ark.
And it's Raiders of the Lost Ark, not
Yes.
Indiana Jones.
It's not Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's just Raiders of the Lost Ark.
And we can discuss that next time.
Yes, we can discuss all that next time when we talk about it. But thank you for listening to us talk about Braveheart, and we will see you next time.
See you next time.